I brought two guns out here with me today that I guess you could call fan favorites. That's going to be the MP5 and the AKV. And the whole point of today's video is if I had to choose one and only one to keep, which one would it be? Before we get started though, do me a solid, go ahead and hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and do so. Drop down in the comments section and let me know if you were standing at the gun counter, which one of these two guns would you be taking home if you had to choose? First, let's talk about the MP5. Of course, not a true MP5. This is a clone. This is a PTR 9CT, and these guns are just iconic. Every video game ever, every action movie since the 80s has featured this gun. There are SWAT teams and special forces units all over the world that have relied on this gun. Everybody loves it. One of the downsides to any of the MP5 clones is cost. They tend to be a little on the expensive side. Even the cheaper, more budget brands, they're still not cheap guns. This one, of course, has a threaded barrel and a tri-lug. So if I want to go ahead and shoot this thing suppressed, I can do so relatively easy. You also have a ton of options for mags as far as capacity goes. So if you live in a state that has magazine restrictions, you can get mags all the way down to 10 rounds. I've seen 50 round drums for these things. You have a lot of options. When it comes to stabilizing braces, again, you've got a lot of options there. People love these guns. So, you know, SB Tactical has a number of different stabilizing braces for these. There's a couple other companies out there that are making stabilizing braces, but this one so far is my favorite. This has been on here since I bought this thing a couple years ago. It's seriously freezing out here. Like, it's bad enough that I can barely operate the safety on this gun today. That's how cold it is. The peep sight or diopter sighting system that these have is extremely accurate. I've shot I don't know how many rounds through this gun, and it's always been accurate for me. This is of course a range gun, so I don't know, I just bring it out and I have fun with it. Like, I'm not sharpshooting with this thing or anything. It's just a gun that I have fun shooting. PTR went ahead and welded a rail to the top, which I really like. I don't have an optic on here right now because I really do enjoy the iron sights on this, but if I wanted to mount an optic to it, it would be super simple. I've handled and shot a handful of different MP5 clones, and from my experience as far as finish goes, fit and finish, the PTRs are really great. I don't know what kind of coating they're using on here. It's definitely not Cerakote. It's not, you know, a standard bluing or anything. But they look really good. The welds are all really nice. Honestly, they are beautiful guns. I really like having this guy in my collection. A more budget-friendly option is going to be this guy here, the PSA AKV. And this thing's got a lot going for it. You know, it uses CZ Scorpion mags, and Palmetto State Armory has come out with their own version of these mags, which I think are higher quality than what CZ is making. They're definitely higher quality than the Magpul mags, and they're relatively inexpensive. If you live in a restricted state, you can get mags for this same as the MP5. You can get 10 round mags, you can get 30 round, 35 round. They have 50 round drums. I don't have one, I wish I did, but they're out there. You also have a lot of options for different furniture, whether it's, you know, different colors or, you know, some of them that have like a quad rail up front. There's a lot of different stabilizing braces. You know, the options out there are pretty much limitless at this point. Just like the MP5, this does have a threaded barrel and it comes with this brake on here. If you want to suppress it, you can go ahead and remove this and put a suppressor on there, so that's great. Sighting system isn't the best. Now, it does have a rail attached up top, so If I wanted to put a dot on here, I could, any type of optic. As far as the iron sights go, they're not great. I'd say that's definitely a hindrance. I don't really like them at all, but this is just a fun gun for me. I bring this out to the range once in a while when I just want to relieve a little bit of stress and burn through some ammo. One of the things that the AKV has that is an advantage over the MP5 is that it has a last round bolt hold open system. So I've got a bolt release over on this side so that after my last round, the bolt stays open. I can swap mags, I can hit that button, close the bolt, and keep going. That's something that you just can't get with an MP5 unless you're talking about the 10mm variant, which good luck finding one of those. And if you do, hope your wallet's pretty fat because they're a little expensive. Another difference between these two guns is that the AKV is pretty heavy. Now, when I bought this and it came into the gun store, I went down to do my background check. I immediately noticed when I got it out of the box that it's got quite a bit of weight to it. Now, I haven't weighed these guns individually, but I can say that just the hand test, the AKV is definitely heavier than the MP5. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not, I can't really say. What I can say though is that both of these guns, the PTR and the AKV, are both extremely well made. As far as shootability goes, the AKV has a pretty strong kick to it and has a fairly violent feel compared to what the MP5 does. That roller delayed system for the MP5 is one of the more smooth shooting firearms that's out there. You know, there's something really smooth about the recoil on this gun. It's really indescribable. You have to feel it to really understand it. Nothing out there feels the same as an MP5. The triggers on both of these guns, they're not great. So the MP5 is known for having kind of a stiff and shitty trigger. This one is totally stock. Ugh. Yeah, it's not good. Now, I have two of these guns. This is my stock version. This one here is the one that I've upgraded a bunch of stuff on. This one has had some trigger work done to it. And it also has the flat face trigger added to it. Not a lot of companies are doing trigger work on MP5s. This one has no take up to the trigger. And it has a very light trigger to it. Just for YouTube, it is not a hair trigger as far as your guidelines go, but it is softer than what a standard trigger is. Still not great. Now, in comparison, when you look at guns like the AKV, this one, there's no wall to it. It is basically just you're pulling and then it goes. So it can catch you off guard at times. For those of you that want to see how the real world application of that trigger work, go check out the Rumble channel. There's certain things that I can't show here on YouTube that I will show on the version of this video on Rumble. An advantage to this gun, the AKV, is that it uses a standard AK trigger mechanism, which means that if you want to upgrade it to like an ALG trigger, it's easy enough to do, relatively inexpensive, and that's going to be a much better trigger than what comes in this gun from the factory. One of the big things that I think differentiates these two guns is reliability. Now, the AKV, I have 3,000 or 4,000 rounds through it. It's a fun gun, so I bring it out sometimes and I'll just burn through a case of ammo. Never had an issue. It's never had a single hiccup. On the other hand, if you're going to buy an MP5, you got to know what you're getting into. It's a little bit like buying a classic car. Sometimes when you want to go on a ride, you go out to the garage and you go to fire it up, it's going to fire right up. Sometimes they just want to run like a piece of shit. And unfortunately, a lot of times the MP5s run like shit. All right, so this is my other PTR, and just for numbers sake, as far as the serial number goes, this is one of the first 300 that came off of the assembly line. So let's go ahead and try to run a mag through it and see if it's a success today. There we go. Well, so that's surprising that it ran an entire mag without jamming up. Let's go ahead and try a second one. Yep, see, there we go. Let's see if we can get that. I don't know. Yeah, see, it's hit and miss with this one. I don't know what's going on with it. I have tried different mags. My next step is I'm going to take the bolt from the other MP5 and put in here and see if I get better results. We're going to do that when I'm done here filming this video. If you have one that runs well, awesome. But something that I've found with this one here, my fully upgraded PTR, sometimes it runs, sometimes it doesn't. Now, I reached out to PTR to ask them about doing some warranty work on it. That was, I'd say, about 3 months ago. And yeah, they still haven't responded to my email. I should probably call them. But on the other hand, I have this guy here, which has ran pretty well. We'll throw some shooting footage in just to kind of compare the two guns. This one, more often than not, will run straight out of the gun safe with no issues. But again, these guns can be quite temperamental. It's a fun gun to shoot, but honestly, neither of these are guns that I'm really going to grab in the middle of the night if I hear glass breaking or my door being broken in. So let's get down to brass tacks, okay? It's starting to snow out here and my hands are getting a little bit cold. Between these two guns, if I was standing at the gun counter and I had to pick one or the other, my pick would definitely be the AKV. And here's why. Number one, in my experience with the three guns that I have here on my table, the AKV has proven to be much more reliable than the MP5. The mags for the AKV are a fraction of the price of the mags for the MP5, and they're relatively easy to get. The mags for the MP5, not a lot of people carry them. You never know what you're gonna get when you buy them. There are a lot of Korean-made mags that are questionable. There are some plastic mags out there that are just garbage. I don't recommend buying those at all. And when you do find those mags for the MP5, they're expensive. The big thing that pushes me towards the AKV over the MP5 is the cost. So the AKV isn't exactly cheap, but it is several $100s less than what an MP5 clone is going to be, especially a reasonably high quality MP5 clone. There are some MP5 clones that are going to be 2 times the cost of an AKV, and those, you know, like the Dakota Tactical, those are going to run great. You're not going to have any issues with a Dakota Tactical gun. The problem is they're wildly expensive. Not only are they wildly expensive, but then you still have the same issue of, you know, trying to find mags. The mags are expensive. I don't know. The MP5 is somewhat outdated. Not to say that the, you know, AK operating system is fresh and new, but this guy here, the AKV, does have you know, some updates to it that you're not going to find on an MP5. At the end of the day, I'm glad that I own both of these. But yes, if I were standing at the gun counter and I had to pick one, I would definitely lean towards the AKV. So that's it today. Relatively short and sweet. Remember, drop down in the comments, let me know which one of these guns would be your pick at the gun store.